You're listening to the Endless Party Radio Show with the Doc on Colossal Radio.
You go Night Ranger, and when you close your eyes, like I close them, and then you have that rapid eye movement, and for those of you that don't sleep, isn't that something? Like some people have to sleep with those masks on too. That's a bummer. I know some friends of mine have to do that. I couldn't imagine. I would hang myself. Like I roll around too much. I don't know how that would work. They say, no, you get used to it. It's like, do you really? But anyway, when I close my eyes, usually when I close my eyes, I am so damn tired by the end of the night, I just kind of like pass out. I'm out. I don't even remember when I fall asleep at all. It's like I'm gone. I'm into the twilight zone. But listen, we're rolling through this Tuesday, and I told you a little after 10 o'clock, right here on Colossal Radio, and we have an educator, we have a teacher, well liked by kids and adults, many, and I know that from my own son, where he said, "Yeah, he's Mr. Rabenold. He's a goat. I don't know. He's a goat." He probably knows what that means. We'll ask him, because we want to bring Ron Rabenold on board with the show right now. Talk a little bit about history and things that this community has been through on a personal basis, and he's got the history to back it up. So, Mr. Rabenold, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Listen, now, do you know what, when the kids say goat, you know what that means?
I mean, in sports, I know what GOAT means, but in education, that's a new thing. So
yeah, no, it means the same thing in sports. Greatest of all time. It means that's what I hear.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know much then.
Yeah, no, I hear the kids say that. They say that about Mr. Surface, who I know for a long time, and
right.
I think I might even drank.
We said it about Mr. Coons.
Mr. Coons.
When we were growing up.
Yeah, Mr. Coons. Yeah. He was another goat. Yeah, he would have been a goat. Mr. Wentz would have been a goat. Indeed. But it is certainly great to have you on board here. Ron Rabenold, we were going to do it in studio, and we opted, obviously, for the safer version of it and on the phone. So for those of you locally that are on board here with us, welcome to the show. And Ron, what on a history end, that people might not realize, and you have that, you post incredible things on your website or your Facebook page that we can read. What should we expect here? What's going on? Give us a little history.
Yeah, been reading in my leisure time here, Luzerne County's account of the 1918 epidemic it's pretty telling, and it's pretty very, very similar to what we're experiencing now. So there's a lot we can learn from history. Mm-hmm. The disease spread slowly here in September of 1918, and by October 1st, they closed down movies, made all funerals private. The State Department of Health took over in early October, the first week, to save lives. That people slowly, it took them longer to awaken to the enormity of the peril it faced. That was the consensus of the authors of this this book of Luzerne counties dealing with it, which is north of here, Wilkes-Barre and Hazleton.
Right, and amazing that you say that it took people a little while to fully understand the scope of things, and I think this is no disrespect to anyone out there, but I do believe that it seems that has run, to some degree, a little parallel to what we're experiencing now.
Right, absolutely. I see many parallels to then and now. What makes our situation a little different this time is because of the little bit longer incubation period till people actually show symptoms. So that has put us behind the curve on that.
Mm-hmm.
We've battled through many things. Life 100 years ago, like Brad Chrisman said to one of my comments when he read my article I wrote years ago about typhoid, how it ran through the communities back in the early 1900s. It's a wonder anybody lived back in those days. So we've come a long way. We have so much better advances in treatments for pneumonia-like diseases like this virus is. The flu bug of 1918 was also, it attacked the lungs. viruses are funny creatures. They can only live in the host. And viruses, love to get into our respiratory tract, and then they like to get into our deeper lungs. So, that's what the common cold is. It's a virus.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a different virus that is very similar, it seems like, in its effect to the one that was in 1918.
Yeah, it certainly is so highly contagious that we're still, I think we're still, to some degree, still trying to get a grasp on it. And and the more testing that's coming out on this is that it can live on surfaces for days and days now, and
Right.
and there's still no sign of it slowing down. I do believe we haven't hit the peak in and around our area yet. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but we have to stay very vigilant and take care of each other and work together. But I think I think we're heading down that road, and we just have to take it one day at a time. What advice, with history and whatever you want to touch base on here, Ron, for the next little bit. I can't wait to have you in on the show, and I would love to do, as we said before, even a weekly segment would be nice to do. A few minutes on the history of Lehighton and Carbon County, but let's focus on on the history with, as you mentioned, 1918 and typhoid fever and things. What do you think history will teach us? What are we? What can we really learn out of this once it's all done? As as we learned back in the early 1900s.
Yeah, we got to protect our doctors and nurses. It was critical then; it's critical now. Three nurses in Hazleton died in 1 week. During the pandemic up there. You see the people in New York, you see the interview with the ladies and men that were working in the nursing home in Washington, and you see the trauma that they went through just trying to keep up. They solicited the bookkeeper of the nursing home was in working as an orderly, just keeping things clean and trying to do their best. We don't want to reach that situation where we have our doctors and nurses. I have a lot of good friends that are doctors, and I just don't want to see them have to suffer, because we're not prepared. And so we're a little behind, and hopefully we're getting caught up, by giving everybody a chance to restock and be ready. I'm sure our local hospitals are ready, and back then they set up emergency hospitals in armories and schools. Hopefully we don't get to that point where we have to set up other things. But, on a positive note, one thing they've discovered back then that they're proving is true this time, fresh air, sunlight, vitamin D, very good preventative things to do on a daily basis. Get out there and get in the sun, do some physical activity in the sun every day. Yeah. And that they found that as a great preventative and cure back in the day, and they're also pointing to that now. Yeah.
The history that on board here with us is Mr. Rabenold, Mr. Ron Rabenold, and history that he tracks for our entire area. We are rich in it in this area. He along with other folks that I'm sure he runs into on a weekly basis, from Mr. Gordon Ripke to Mr. Mike Ebert, all these guys with the history that they're bringing back, that we can learn from, not just with this situation that we're in, but just the rich history that we have in this area. Are you in the process, I believe, of writing a book?
Yeah. I am. I don't know how you got into that. I don't think I told you that. It's focusing on the lumber camps and the fires and floods that happened and the bear hunting up in Albrightsville in the 1880s. This book takes place. It's a historical fiction novel.
Yeah, we look forward to that. You have to. I know a radio station that we can break the news once it's written and it's published. I just just throwing it out there, and not a problem. You know, we can learn a lot. Like you said, we can learn a lot from history. You know, I love when I have you into the studio because you know we can. I mean, not that we can't be engaging on the phone, but it's so much more engaging when you have you know, a personal one-on-one relationship when we have you in the studio. But I will tell you, you know, the history and the posts that Ron makes are just amazing, and it is, you know, we love to learn from it. You know, we love to see the pictures, the articles that are written, the rich history that we have throughout our entire area of Carbon County into the Poconos is pretty deep, Mr. Rabenold, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, you mentioned, you know, Mr. Ripke and Mr. Everett. I stand on the shoulders of the mountains of work that they have done, and they've so graciously shared with me. And one of their great stories that is such a little footnote is Hugh Jennings, that got his start playing semi-pro, pro baseball here in Lehighton, back when, you know, every community practically had a professional team that paid their players to play, and that was about the 1890s he played here, Hugh Jennings. What's interesting about that man, he suffered so many head injuries.
Wow.
And he still holds the career record, and I believe single season and career record by only one or two bean balls of getting hit by bait. He was not afraid of getting hit by a pitch. If he had to get on base, he got hit by a pitch. Took many to the head. You know, when we talk about these NFL players with this post-traumatic concussion syndrome, you know, he definitely, you just saw a nervous system decline with Hugh Jennings. Became a great beloved national manager. He was famous for this little, get the crowd going, you go, ee-yah! And he'd jump up in the air, put his hands in the air, and it became a well-known signature of his. Been researching a lot about Stoddartsville lately, and what's interesting was he was being a manager, I forget for who at that point, maybe the Giants, and he had a car accident off the bridge. His car actually tumbled off the bridge at the Lehigh River at Stoddartsville, and again crushed his skull, and they didn't think he was going to live. And from that point, his days were really a suffering of mental decline.
Wow.
You know, from probably so many head injuries. So that man has left his mark on baseball that still remains today, and he had his baseball start right here in Lehighton, and that's a great story that Ripke and Ebert did a great job of digging out.
These are the things that I'm sitting here in awe, just like I did when you were in the studio a while back with this information. And you know, I want to pick up the book again that Mr. Ripke and Mr. Ebert wrote, and I go through it every once in a while. I'll pick it up and page through, and you know, remember this, or maybe I missed something. And I just love the history of our area, and that's one story within in the book. I missed that, so I read it and forgot. Imagine that.
Right.
But it's crazy. You know, and even going back in the day, I remember. I think he was a professor, Thomas Eckhart. Remember Thomas Eckhart? He did the volume 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Sure.
Yeah, and we have all those volumes at home. That was a long time ago. They're
a great resource. Sure.
Yeah, another one, and just the history and what you bring to the table with what you know, with what you do. I would actually, you know, I'm going to say this now. I would love. Once this all passes, it will be great. I will reach out to both of them, Mr. Ripke, Mr. Ebert, and you, and maybe let's get a show together that we get you guys in on the show live in the studio. That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Right, that would be good.
I mean, I would.
I could interview them.
Yeah, I mean, it would be so cool. You could as well. Different
Yeah.
things. That would be a
Right.
good. That would be a good chat session. I'd even come in. I'd even come in on a weeknight. To make it easier for you, I would make it work, and we'll do
Right.
a special
Paper.
broadcast. Yeah, special broadcast with the three of you people here in the studio would be amazing. So what else that you might want to touch base on, Mr. Rabenold? What
Yeah.
else?
Well, we go back to the pandemic in 1918 at some point, but something interesting I just dug up. Jay Gould, who made national news, tried to corner the gold markets. He got his start. You can look him up. He was one of the most notorious robber barons of the late 1800s. He made his money buying out railroads and reselling them. And then he tried to corner the gold market when President Grant was president. He got his start right up here in the Pine Swamp, northern Carbon County, southern Luzerne County. He started a tannery there, and you can just see the chain of rotten business deals he gave people that he just bankrupted and discredited every partner he ever worked with. He just was just ruthless of a business person. And there was actually a war that was fought over the tannery at one summer of the summer of 1859, where his partner took advantage of Gould's absence, and the partner that was fighting with him, that he was ruining his credit, came in with 400. They said some accounts have it as few as 150. Most people agree it's between 150 200. Came in and by force and guns took over the tannery until Gould would cooperate and do what he was responsible to do with the 1,200 hides that they had in their inventory, and 1,200 sides, cattle sides. So Gould, being the man he was able to get a crew of men to come in and take them over, and it was literally a battle between two forces for over weeks in the forest up there. And finally, Jay Gould's men took it back over, and they smuggled the hides back out, and they hid them in a barn in Tobyhanna. And then, Jay Gould got paid for those hides through Pratt, and then his partner, and then Pratt went out of business. And then Jay Gould then sold those 1,200 hides to another firm. So Jay Gould essentially got paid twice for those hides.
Wow.
And he took that money to buy his first railroad, the Erie Railroad. And then he took that and bankrupted it and resold it, hollowed out the business and made a fortune and sold it. And they said at the height of the gold scandal, every time gold changed price by $1, he made $15,000. So when he started the gold scandal, the gold was valued at about $4 an ounce. It got at one point as high as $160, and if you do the math of that, it's millions of dollars he made on trying to corner the market. And what that did was it caused a worldwide global, to some degree, a global panic, but definitely a panic in the United States, where we went into a depression time. Corn and farmers' products went down by half because of the depression that he caused by trying to corner the world gold market. So Jay Gould has his start in his robbery of the economy right here in the Pine Swamp of Carbon County.
No kidding. That is amazing. That is really, truly, that's amazing stuff. I mean, that the history of that you don't realize. Where do you find all this information?
Some people like to watch TV. I just like to research, and I have a couple different resources I use online, and they're getting better and better all the time. The things that you can find. Something that's invaluable to me right now is this newspapers.com subscription I have.
Wow.
You can get a basic subscription for about $36 a year, and you get professional edition for $72 a year, and that's well worth the money for me because that's my hobby.
Interesting, very and a good one that it is, because what you bring to the table for all of us throughout this area, and even people that want to learn about our area as well. But for those of us that are born and raised, that live here, that call Lehighton, Carbon County, the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania our home, what you bring to the table is amazing. Both and again both. Mr. Gordon Ripke and Mr. Mike Ebert as well, and the Thomas Eckharts and the other people that have pulled things together over the years, all of you. And I want to get all of you on the same page and in the studio. Would be an incredible show. I would love it. So a couple of things. I mean, and then I'm going, guys, I do want to let you know, Ron Rabenold on board here with us, Lehighton Area School District teacher. And for a long time, as some of the kids say, he is the GOAT. So that's a compliment. I haven't had my own son even call me a GOAT, so I don't know what's going on with that. But the teachers, yes, me, not so much. But we also have the Pennsylvania State Police that will be coming on board with us not too far from now to bring us an update on what's going on with the situation with what the governor had passed, and we want to get it firsthand from the state police coming up as well. But in the meantime, to bring this a full circle, Ron, and I know it was just a quick couple of minutes, and we will definitely do certainly longer once this all passes and we get you back in the studio, and certainly to further promote the book that you are currently writing. But again, going back to the early 1900s. And learning, maybe we should heed the warning and do what they're telling us to do on the social distancing, right?
Yeah, you just see it time and time again. You saw a 7,000 person gathering at some kind of automobile function at Bloomsburg Fair, September of 1918. That's what you saw 2 weeks later, a big spike in Luzerne County, and that's what brought me to that book. You saw it with the 200,000 people that gathered in Philadelphia. They knew better. You know, when you read the record here, you think, oh, they just didn't know better. No, they knew better. The medical science knew that this was how it worked. What we're doing now is no different than what we discovered when Dr. Snow of London first discovered the Broad Street pump was the source of the cholera infection that was killing thousands of people in London. You know, that cholera epidemic came to the United States. It came here. We lost 2 doctors and Jim Thorpe battling it in 1854. We lost tens of people that summer from that in Lehighton. We probably lost maybe 100 people that summer from typhoid, from cholera, I should say. And no one wants to be known as Typhoid Mary. Study Typhoid Mary and what she did. She was asymptomatic. She did not, possess any symptoms. She didn't know she was sick. She did not know she was carrying it at first. But then once she started cooking for different families, as soon as someone, and some of these families, 7 out of 10 of them would die after she was done cooking for them. She would move on. As soon as the first illness she would leave. And she did this for about 3 years. She was quarantined on an island off the coast of Manhattan. For a number of years, they released her. Then she promised never to cook again. She got work as a laundry worker. Then slowly started cooking again because cooking paid better money. And again, it happened again. And she infected 25 people here, 30 people there. People would have parties. There's a party that happened in Ohio, I forget the year, in this time, 1900 to 1930, in that time period, where every single woman at the party, I think it was a woman's party, but some of the men were there. Every single woman, 38 of them, all got typhoid. Wow. Every single one.
Wow.
They have no idea where it came from. They think it came from the cream. You can read in the history where typhoid was in milk. That's why it's good that we pasteurize our milk now. I had a great uncle that died of typhoid when he was a little boy in 1900. And no one wants to be Typhoid Mary.
Wow.
She ended up in quarantine the rest of her life on an island because she was just loaded with the bacteria that caused typhoid. And so none of us know if we're asymptomatic carriers, and we got to do our due diligence. We got to listen to science.
Yeah.
If history tells us nothing else, we got to listen to science.
Yeah.
Don't listen to politicians. Listen to science.
It's amazing how we often hear this, and I'm sure you have over all your years and the history that you bring for all of us, but how history certainly at times repeats itself.
Yeah, right. There's human nature at work, and you can see the warnings back in 1918, and you can see them second guessing. In fact, the guy that wrote the report said, historians will vie over this information to learn from our mistakes that we made, and you can just read it. It's like a carbon copy of the mistakes we're making now. And unfortunately, we as humans, we do a great job of learning from mistakes if we're willing to listen to them and willing to admit them. So there we have, and that's what Dr. I can't think of his name right now. Fauci.
Oh, yeah.
Trump's good guy.
Right.
We haven't seen him in a couple of days. People are worried we haven't seen him in 2-3 days. But hopefully he's well. But Fauci, I think his name is. He said, we got to learn from the mistakes. We'll learn from the mistakes that they made in Washington. They were the first nursing home to deal with this problem, and I haven't seen my dad in weeks. Our nursing home was closed down. So we're learning from our mistakes, and that's all we can do.
Yeah.
And do our best and stay positive. Keep the faith.
Right.
Keep the faith is important. Another good war buddy of my dad's, Jack Yamaguchi. He was a prisoner of war. I should say he was an internment camp prisoner because he was Japanese American. He could have got out by enlisting, but he wanted to stay with his family. And as soon as the war was over, he did then enlist in the Marine Corps, and that's how I got to know my dad. And just knowing his story and knowing how he just had this positive attitude of keeping the faith no matter what. We got to keep a positive attitude, stick together, stay positive, and keep the faith in science. It's going to do the best that we can do to get out of this.
Yeah, exactly. And keep the faith is right. Positive vibes, learning
Yep.
from history, but positive vibes from Mr. Ron Rabenold. Listen, let's touch base. We can do some things here, and certainly promote that book, or even your sisters. I know we talked about that. Let's not have it so long between the next time we catch up here on the station and on the show, please.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Oh my gosh, it's always a pleasure. Like I said, I wanted to do something again. Ron Rabenold on board here with us, and we were going to have an entire show on board with Ron, but with the situation at hand, we figured this would be certainly the best and the safest to do it this way. So, thank you very much. Best to your wife. You guys say hi, and we'll we won't see you on the street, and if we do, and you're out for a walk, I'll wave to you from the other side.
You bet. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you later. Thank you very much.
All right,
you bet. Bye. There you are, Ron Rabenold, and really great dude, and brings a wealth of knowledge. How cool would that be, though, with Mr. Ripke, Mr. Ebert, and Mr. Rabenold on board here with us? And if I can get another historian or two that's around here that would like to join the show as well, that would be cool, right? And so cool for Colossal Radio, and where we're focused right here, our hometown of Lehighton, Pennsylvania, right here in Carbon County, right? Listen, quick break. I got to take a quick break and get into our local partners that are on board here with us. We are coming back with Tony from Trooper Tony from the Pennsylvania State Police. So sit tight, stick around, and updating us on the situation that's at hand. All right.
Lehighton, Palmerton, Gemthorpe, and nationwide. It's Colossal Radio. Find us online at colossalradio.rocks.